Hey guys, it's time to Nefis and chill, and this video will be showcasing the Magicka Sorcerer DPS class for Update 32, otherwise known as the Deadlands DLC. The Magicka Sorcerer class remains one of the strongest DPS options from an early to endgame level in the Elder Scrolls Online for all levels of PvE content. And if you guys want to check out the other DPS guides we've made, from Stamcrow to Magicka, definitely check it out on the channel or on the ESO University website, where we also have this Maxwork DPS guide build posted. Let's go on with the stats and so forth. Recommended race from the Magicka Sorcerer is Altmer or Dunmer. Qkiie could still be good in either raids or for main content, depending on the critical damage value of your setup. With that noted, you will have typically 64 points into your attribute of Magicka. The recommended Mundus Stone for this patch on the Maxwork, just like pretty much every other DPS class, is going to be the Thief. Recommended food for this build is Ghastly Eyeball if on the dummy, or any bystat food for your content that requires you to do so in the form of health and Magicka. You can also do Clockwork Citrus Fillet or Witchmother's Potent Brew if need be for both sustain and stats. In some cases, due to the pet's health passive, you can also use any green max Magicka food for a simple 6,000 more max Magicka, roughly. Your potion of choice is going to be Essence of Spell Power. Now, heroism potions are quite a bit harder on the Maxwork compared to Magicka because of the bar space due to the pets. If you can somehow do it, you could, but I don't think it's really worth it. Now let's move on to the primary item setups. Also in this video, we'll be going over not just the gear setups for this particular route, but we're also going to be going over alternative gear setups and also the DPS rotation, including static and dynamic. First, we're going to have one piece Slime Craw, and of course, one piece Harpooner's Waiting Kilt. It's pretty much kind of the standard for a lot of parsing setups to have one piece Slime Craw and one piece Harpooner's Kilt, due to the amount of critical chance you get from Slime Craw being the highest out of any one piece, and the Harpooner's Waiting Kilt from its stacks of Hunter's Focus. Your primary 5-piece, however, will be, well, you guessed it, Base's Mania. It's very, very, very hard to beat out this set, so this is going to be your primary setup. Your secondary setup is going to be a little bit surprising here, actually, because for most Magicka DPS classes in Update 32, the question remains between a Base's Mania and Kinraz's Wrath setup or a Base's Mania Advancing Yokeda setup. In our previous Magicka Dragon Knight DPS guide, we went with the Base's Mania and Kinraz's Wrath setup after some testing, because the two setups are quite close in DPS. But however, on the Maxwork, it seems Advancing Yokeda, or Berserking Warrior, on the front bar seems to edge out on the Magicka Sorcerer, at least on the raid dummy. If you don't have Base's Mania, you'll need a different light armor set to wear on the body. Typically, this will be from best to worst: Sororia, False God's Devotion, and Mother's Sorrow. For your 2-piece on the back bar, it's going to be a Maelstrom Staff, preferably a Flame Staff. And just in case you guys want to see it, for sure, we have the gear setup as shown in the video, including weight, trait, enchantments, and of course, which pieces can go where. Monster sets is also a very, very viable or even optimal option, depending on fights and content where you may not be able to keep up kilt stacks depending on the nature of the fights or incoming damage. Monster sets for your Maxwork could include Maud Inferno, Narayan, Kjolnir's Nightmare if no one else is running it, Zan's, Stormfist or Iceheart depending on if you want safety or more damage, and Damihals if only the ring can hit the enemy's hitbox. Secondary set alternatives such as Burning Spellweed with Solzon's Torment and Grothar for trash scenarios can be good. Bloodthirsty, as you can see, is still pretty much the best jewelry trait available for most scenarios. Dual daggers will typically outparse double Inferno staves in melee range whenever possible, otherwise using Inferno staves on both bars for situational cases is more than fine. Your front bar and back bar skills for typical single target is going to be as shown on the screen. On the front bar, from left to right, for Crystal Fragments, Mage's Wrath, Daedric Prey, Volatile Familiar, Tormentor, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. Back bar is going to be Unstable Wall of Fire, Scouting Rune, Barb Trap, and of course, to keep the pets active, also on the same back bar, Volatile Familiar and Tormentor. And the back bar ultimate is going to be the Greater Storm Atronach. For champion points, we're going to have a typical craft CP setup. Fitness slot levels are, of course, situational or in general, like as shown in the video. For the max work, nothing has changed much. You'll still have Fighting Finesse, Deadly Aim, Backstabber, Master at Arms, at least as far as the dummy goes. If you go to a raid and you have EC or something like that, you may be able to drop something like Fighting Finesse in turn for something like Thaumaturge or Biting Aura, depending on the situation. Before we move on to the main setup, or rather main rotation explanation, we're going to talk briefly about gear and setup alternatives. For example, for a trash scenario where you're killing just mobs, you can go with Inferno and Inferno staff setup. And your two-piece monster set could be Valodreth, Soulzon's Torment on the front bar, Harpooner's Waiting Kilt, and Burning Spellweave on the back bar. Suggested champion points for this setup is going to be Backstabber, Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, and Biting Aura or Deadly Aim depending. For his skills, as you can see on the front bar, we have Crystal Fragments, Daedric Prey, Pulsar, Proximity Detonation, Camouflaged Hunter for the flank plus minor berserk passive. We also have Flawless Dawnbreaker in the front bar for the increased spell damage passive. And on the back bar we have Wall, Mystic Orb, Lightning Flood, Boundless Storm, and Channeled Acceleration with Elemental Rage as the ultimate. Dungeon setup for an Inferno staff setup or a dual wield and Inferno staff on the back bar setup is going to be Maud Infernal, Basse's Mania, Sogvins on the front bar, and a Maelstrom Inferno staff on the back bar, with the suggested Mundus Stone being the Thief. And the skills for both of these are going to be as shown on the video. If you need more sustain for the dungeon setup, you can always replace the Crystal Fragment on the back bar with skills like Dark Conversion or Spell Symmetry. Lastly, for an arena setup, you can go double Inferno staves. You'll probably have, we recommend 5-piece Soulzon's Torment, 5-piece Basse's Mania with 1 Thracian Stranglers, and a Maelstrom Inferno on the back bar, with the recommended Mundus Stone still being the Thief. However, the suggested champion points are a little bit different here for arenas because Backstabber is pretty horrible for arenas in general because everything is facing you. So you'll probably go with Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Untamed Aggression, or anything really except Backstabber. And the skills are as shown on the video. Let's go over the rotation. For your pre-buff and opening rotation, consume your Spell Power Potion about 35 seconds before starting the fight, as you don't want to pop your potion right away because you need to start your fight with your Magicka as low as possible for the opening burst due to bosses, and you want to gain a reprieve on your Magicka sustain at a certain point as well. Once your Magicka pool hits 20 to 30%, you initiate the fight by casting Tormentor, the Greater Storm Atronach away from the target, cast a Volatile Familiar, and then finally cast Scouting Rune and Barb Trap on the target. Now we'll showcase 2 different kinds of rotations in the video. The one being shown in the video is of a dynamic rotation, and Magicka Sorcerer dynamic rotation isn't as complicated as some other classes, such as the Magicka Nightblade or Stamina Dragon Knight, as you only need to prioritize the following skills in order of priority from top to bottom. Daedric Prey, Crystal Fragment procs, Unstable Wall of Fire, Barb Trap, Volatile Familiar, and everything else comes after these skills listed on the screen. Pretty straightforward, right? For a static rotation, if you want to deviate away from just kind of keeping a dynamic priority in mind, the skills you should cast in order from top to bottom for a static rotation are as follows: Daedric Prey, Crystal Fragments, and this is going to include procs 5 times, or a spammable of your choice like Force Pulse 5 times. Daedric Prey, after that again, Volatile Familiar, Unstable Wall of Fire, Scouting Rune, Crystal Fragments twice, procs included, and Daedric Prey. And this is, of course, after your opening rotation for both dynamic and static. If your Barb Trap runs out for your static rotation, simply recast it in place of one of these spammable casts. For your execute rotation, once you hit below 20% health, because that's when Sorc execute starts, instead of 25% for other classes, you want to use Flawless Dawnbreaker over the Storm Atronach ultimate. You'll basically immediately stop using Volatile Familiar and Daedric Prey after they expire below the 20% health mark on the target. You'll also immediately stop hard casting Crystal Fragments, or whatever spammable you have, and replace it with Weaving Mage's Wrath, and only using Crystal Fragment procs if they appear. Besides that, all you have to do is keep up the durations of Unstable Wall of Fire and Barb Trap until about 4% of the target's health, and at that point you just finish the fight with Light Attack and Mage's Wrath weaves with occasional frag procs. And that's pretty much it. Sorc still remains top tier in terms of damage potential, while remaining very accessible for a lot of players, which is really great. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any questions about the build, let me know down in the comments below. The link to the build page for the ESOU link is in the description and comments down below. And if you enjoyed the content and enjoyed the guide so far and the rotation explanations, definitely do like and subscribe for us to help reach more people with information and to help us encourage more content creation. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, have fun, and Happy New Year.